Welcome into a special edition of the Jordy Culotta Show. Welcome back here to South Louisiana. Full day of travel. Shout out to Mr. Fun and his travel team, Jason Ramazan, the entire crew over at Mr. Fun's Travel for another wildly successful trip. This one goes out to Los Angeles. Fellas, Lloyd, it's good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, sir. Glad to have you back.
Great work.
We did the best we could without you. But it was it seemed like a bucket list trip from all the pictures I saw come out and everything that people were doing. It looked like it was a can't misser.
It was great, man. It really was. I tell you, it was, the down part obviously being the football game, but at the end of it, Kelly and I were on the way home and we were like, who cares? I mean, the rest of the trip was so good. So many memories made. Little Jay was out there I know everybody had their experience running into people yesterday at the game, running into a ton of Tiger fans this morning at the airport. So just shout out to everybody who we saw out there. It was a fun, great trip. We were out in Santa Barbara for a day and a half with my buddy Justin Parnell and his mother Jean. It was just beautiful scenery and city and walking around and seeing a place that you never even think that you'll cross paths with, but Santa Barbara, California is an absolute treasure on the West Coast if you ever want to get away. Thank you so much to the Parnells for opening up their door. Justin Parnell and his mother, Jean, out there were so kind with their home and showing us around the city, and then getting into Los Angeles on Saturday morning and making our way to the Rose Bowl, the legendary granddaddy of them all. Seeing that place up close, a little underwhelming.
I feel like it's not necessarily the stadium, it's everything else around it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you get because the field itself is glorious, but I don't think people are going there for the infrastructure of the Rose Bowl.
Lloyd, the coolest part of the night, and I'm telling you, I have been in this business. We are lucky enough to travel around to football venues, and we've been to a ton over the last decade. And seen a lot of it. I hadn't seen it all, but seen a lot of it. The fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter at UCLA, may be the coolest in-stadium experience I've ever been to. I hate to be in a vacuum and speak in the moment, but I mean, they play California Love by Tupac and Snoop on full blast, and everybody gets their cameras out and turns on their spotlight, their flashlight. They have light shows inside of the Rose Bowl. They have the lights that you can bounce off the beat. They're playing the lights with the beat and the entire stadium, and it wasn't full capacity, but it was a loud contingency of UCLA fans that were there, and they were out. I mean, for as far as the thought of LSU taking over the stadium, that was lost pretty quick once you arrived, but the entire stadium blaring at the top of their lungs. I mean, I was in it. I looked over, even Tommy Calandro, old schooler. Yeah, I mean, it was tough not to get into it. I mean, there's a lot of momentum of trying to build, some good vibes of going into the fourth quarter now with everything that you do with college football stadiums and it going into the fourth quarter. At UCLA at the Rose Bowl, I thought was with California Love, blaring out of the speakers in the entire stadium. It was fine. It was the finest. I didn't get my video camera out in enough time. I got about the last 30 seconds of it, but I mean, I saw Moscona this morning at the airport. He got a lot of it. I'll ask him to send it over, but it was fantastic. And then, of course, the game, which was just a dud. I mean, it was just an absolute dud. But real quick, we got some exciting news here on the Jordy Culotta Show. We told you about the news of Kayshon Boutte signing on here, which we're fired up for, and Kayshon's going to be a weekly here. We've also formed a relationship with BJ Ojulari, who is obviously the sophomore defensive end for LSU and is coming off of our freshman All-American season, has signed a partnership with us here on the Jordy Culotta Show, and we will speak to him weekly. And we're going to have our first conversation with BJ coming up here in about 3 minutes. So we're going to talk to BJ Ojulari, the standout defensive end for the SEC, big SEC team last night, who had a big Pac-12 road test and miserably failed. Just as miserable as that game could have gone for LSU, I think it was probably worse than you could have envisioned if it was to go as bad as possible, because a lot of what haunted LSU over the last 365 days, some of the demons that they were trying to exercise were in full attendance last night. Crossing routes, just disorganization, a almost mentality and attitude of, man, you hate to ever use the word in competition, but there was a little bit of quit. It looked as if some part of it was just not even engaged into the game. There's so much to get to. There's so much to talk about.
What concerns you the most?
Everything. After watching it, after reading it, the post-game quotes, the pre-game stuff is so bad. Now, I mean, I know that we put it on Instagram, and we saw it and said LSU by 1 million, and I mean, we've owned it. It didn't age well, but I mean, when I saw it real time when it came out, I cringed. When I saw it on Twitter, when Jacques put it up within the first 5 minutes, I was watching it out of the side of my eye with kind of my shoulder raised and thinking to myself, he is melting under the pressure of this stuff, man, because if he's allowing that random fan to rattle him on a walk into the stadium, I mean, if you want to really break that thing down and go back and watch it, and I'm talking about the pregame back and forth between Orgeron and the UCLA fan, if you want to go back and just look at that, how riled up he gets. I mean, he lets out a grunt when he walks into the tunnel.
He wasn't joking.
No, was he? I mean, that's not even up for debate. I mean, he is pissed. He wants some of that guy, and for his head to be in that space in that moment at that part of the schedule in the day, I think is so concerning for the LSU administration. And look, I have spoke to some people that were in attendance in Los Angeles, and I have talked to some influential people today since being back in Baton Rouge. And let me tell you, the temperature on Orgeron's seat is rising by the minute. And it's a lot of the stuff that we talked about going into training camp, where people were mocking me. And I'm not looking for credit now, but if anybody wants to discount that the LSU administration is looking at the public relations part of Ed Orgeron and his status at LSU with the head coaching job, you've got to be fooling yourself if they're not looking at that and saying he is failing miserably at it. Miserably. And when his team performs like they do, like they have over the past year, and continue to struggle with the same problems and principles where it looks like it's haunting the program again, and the public relations is so far out of whack, there is major discussion behind the scenes on what could be next. Because if I'm watching LSU, as the way that I'm watching LSU, I want, how do you improve what LSU's major deficiencies are? There's not a waiver wire in college football. There's no free agency in college football. You can't pick up the phone tonight and call Clemson and say, hey, if I ship you a couple of defensive ends, will you ship me a couple of offensive linemen? It ain't happening. I mean, they played everybody on the offensive line last night. They were just, hey, get out there. You, go. Xavier Hill, go. Marlon Martinez, go. Can somebody block anybody?
Well, then you have to be. That's when the biggest red flag I saw was just the lack of running game was abysmal. You can't win football when you rush for 50 yards a game. That's just the way. That's not the way it works. And then when they came out with a tackle over, and you had the other tight end in also to come in, it's like it was like back to max protection with Les Miles, where you had to bring in 8 people to help block because they couldn't stop anybody, and they still couldn't block them. It
Well,
was just abysmal up front. And
as bad as the game plan was, and the game plan was miserable, the adjustments within the game were putrid. The outside stuff is now beginning to take front page news. That clip that Jacques put up yesterday, he put it up 3 hours before kickoff. An hour and a half later, it had 1 million hits. 1 million hits in 90 minutes. There are people that pay only attention to the public relations part of LSU football because 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it is a PR machine. And LSU's captain, the guy that's driving the ship, doesn't understand at all the PR behind it. I mean, he's got pictures surfacing on game week 24 hours before kickoff with him and some co-ed bouncing around town. I don't care about your personal business. I'm not worried about who you're dating, when you're dating, and if you're dating at all. But as the LSU head football coach, you have to understand what that looks like if that goes into the public, and then 24 hours later, you get your teeth kicked in. That's all fine and good if you're coming out and you're 15-0 and you look good and you beat everybody and you're putting up 50 points and hundreds of yards a weekend. That's cool. But you come out and piss the bed, and now everybody wants to talk about that stuff. And then you go back and forth with a UCLA fan and call him a sissy in a blue shirt on the way in the stadium, on the way into the stadium before kickoff. That's where your head's at? As bad as LSU played yesterday, we're not even talking about the game yet. Again. With this and this stuff. It's a joke.
But like you said, what do you say if that happens and LSU goes in and does kick their teeth in 42-10? You say everybody goes back and looks at it and likes it. You know, that's part of his personality where I don't think it's that big of a deal if LSU wins, but he's opened up himself for so much criticism off the field whenever he does stuff like that. And I understand, I want my coach to be authentic.
You good?
And so to see him do that and it not work out, it's just another public misstep for O.
We go now to the newest member of the Jordy Culotta Show. We go into partnership with a couple of guys. We picked out 2 guys who we went after. Our top 2 on the board, 1 and 1A, was Kayshon Boutte and BJ Ojulari.
Great recruiting.
Out getting a man, and Ojulari was the latest to jump on board, the big-time defensive end, sophomore defensive end in the SEC, a part of Rock Nation Sports. BJ Ojulari joining us here on the special edition of the Jordy Culotta Show. BJ, how are you, man? Thank you for your time. It's great to have you aboard, bro.
It's great to be on the show. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely, man. Disappointing, I know, is the feeling right now after
Yes,
game 1. Tell me where your head's at after yesterday's game.
It was definitely a disappointing loss. We felt like we definitely supposed to win that game, but we just have to come back next week. We got McNeese, so we just have to come back stronger.
Where was the mindset of this team coming out of training camp, in your opinion, BJ? Where were you guys heading into L.A.?
I believe we're supposed to go undefeated this year, but after this loss, our goals are still reachable. We just got to go 11 straight.
Where are you right now as far as your health goes after game 1?
Right now, I'm pretty healthy. Been in the training room doing some maintenance things, cold tub, hot tub, just doing massages and stuff just to stay healthy, stay fit for the whole season.
How's it been with Durante Jones, the new defensive coordinator?
It's been great. I like his defense. I like his team. Coach Carter, he's a good D-line coach too. So coming from the NFL, he's teaching us a lot of things, new things. And then we just fit his scheme, playing outside more of the tackles this year.
What was the trip like to L.A.? We were out. We just got back about an hour ago, bro. It was a fantastic. We got out there on Thursday just like you guys did, so we took a lot of it in. I saw some social media from you bouncing out from Staples Center and around Los Angeles. What was the trip like?
Oh yeah, Los Angeles was amazing. It's a different, different atmosphere. But the traveling from Houston to LA was pretty smooth. But yeah, other than that, flying home, it was a smooth flight home. Just fell asleep the whole ride.
Absolutely. So what's the schedule like for you guys on a road trip? Give some of our listeners the insight of, you get back from a road trip today, you got a game on Saturday. What will this week look like for you?
So we get back today. We got treatment and stuff today. Tomorrow we're back at practice. We got lift in the morning, and then meetings around 1:30. Go back to the practice schedule on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then back at it on Friday. We check in the log, cook, and get ready for McNeese.
How was last week dealing with the storm? How much did that? I don't want to build up an excuse for you guys, but I mean, how much did last week maybe throw you off as far as traveling to Houston, working out outside of your facility?
I didn't think it was a big throw off. We were still pretty locked in. Whole team was pretty, I say, prepared for the situation, because Coach O, he discussed traveling to Houston prior to us leaving. So I don't use it as an excuse, because I feel like we was pretty prepared. The Texans allowed us to use their facility, and that was a great facility too. So it was not really any excuses.
Bro, we got you one of the biggest freaks in college football as far as potential goes. I know that everybody that watched you play last year has high expectations for you in year two. How about for you? What are your expectations coming off of a All-American, freshman All-American type season in your sophomore year? What do you expect from yourself?
I just expect a great season, of course. I want to be one of the top rushers in the SEC, along with Andre Anthony and Ali Gay. I believe that our D-line can be the best D-line in the SEC or in the country. We have that ability, so I just want to play my role and help the defense as much as possible on the pass rush and even anything else as a run stopping and stuff like that.
Follow our guy on Twitter at BJ_09 is where you can follow him. How about on Instagram? What's the handle there, bro?
My Instagram is Ojulari. Instead of the O, it's just a 0.
Ooh, oh, good. Love that,
I like
bro.
that.
The 0 with the Ojulari. Love that, as BJ Ojulari, newest member of the Jordy Culotta show, and a proud member, of course, from our side. How about this name, image, and likeness stuff, bro? How has this been? I know that you're represented by Rock Nation Sports. John and the crew have been fantastic to work with as far as getting this deal done, as far as we were concerned. But I know that you've got a lot of interest from other businesses and representatives out there. What has this experience been like for you?
It's definitely different, and it's definitely beneficial to all the athletes, being able to make income off our name, image, and likeness for so long. A lot of athletes haven't had that opportunity, like my brother. Yeah. So just having that opportunity is really a blessing.
What was it like watching your brother go through this experience? What did you learn watching him that you maybe were able to recognize, because you had such a successful first season in college football?
Yeah, just watching. He even still to this day after the game, he coaches me up. But just watching his process, learning from him, is definitely giving me a advantage. One thing I learned from him is just being patient. He was very patient, and when his time came, he shined. So I'm just interpreting that into my situation and stuff like that. So his patience was really his key. And then when he got his opportunity, he showed why he's supposed to be on the field.
BJ, what do you take away from Saturday's game, and what changes do you think that you all make going into the McNeese game?
There's a lot to take away from. As a whole team, we have a lot to improve on to get where we're at. I took away a D-line played with effort and stuff like that. The whole I think the whole team played with good effort. We just got to fix a couple things, and we'll be good for McNeese.
Day off tomorrow from class. How's it work for you?
Oh, yeah. So we just got lift and practice, regular schedule, just no class. I think class comes, I think we go back on Wednesday, I believe.
What a great time for a college kid, bro.
Oh,
last
week
had to work out great for you, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, how many classes have you been to up to this point? I mean, I'm not looking for a head count. I'm just being like, how many days of school have y'all really had? Like 2?
we only really had a full week, only one full week of school,
Okay.
and then this past week was with the whole hurricane thing, so they canceled the whole week.
What's your focus of study? What are you interested in?
My major is general business and a minor in entrepreneurship.
Give our listeners a little bit of your past, man. I don't think for people out there, some people may know your story, but for those who don't, it's kind of a mind-blowing thing. If you don't mind, just kind of the elevator pitch of kind of who you are, where you're from, and your family background.
So both my parents are from Nigeria. They came to the States in the I want to say the 80s and 90s. Started off in Philadelphia, moved up to Georgia, where they had me and my brothers and sisters. Grew up in Marietta, the whole Marietta school system, and it's crazy because my mother's side of the family, my grandpa, he's actually a prince back home, so that's an interesting fact about me. Yeah. But I don't tell a lot of people that. Just to,
I mean,
just to keep it on the low.
Card when you have to.
How many coming to America references do you get in the locker room?
Oh yeah, a lot. Ever since everybody found out.
Bro, what's
so it
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, yeah, it's just been really funny since everybody found out. So everybody likes to make a joke of it. Still to this day, they found out last year, but to this day they still call me Prince here and there.
What is the what's the craziest thing of growing up with like royalty, like with royal ties? I mean, what is something that you have that you may not, that just the layman doesn't even experience?
I mean, back home, there's a lot of things that I never been back home, but my mother says when she was younger, she traveled the world because my grandpa, he was an artist. He was a famous artist as well. His name is Twin77. So he was a famous artist. He was 7 sets of twins. He was one set of 7 sets of twins.
Wow.
So it's just a lot of stuff back home that I haven't experienced that my mother did, and she just tells us about all the culture and stuff like that. But we have a lot of family in the States, so on the family reunions, it's just a lot of stuff from usually what you'll see back home, but it's very festive and stuff like that. Love
it, bro. I speak for our entire team over here, man. It is great to have you aboard and a part of our show. We love watching number 8 in the purple and gold every week, pulling for you, bro. I know you guys will get it right this week. Thank you for your time this week, and I guess this will be a weekly where we pull you in on Sunday night and just get a little conversation from you. Thank you for your time, man.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
There he is. BJ Ojulari checking in for our first hit with a little name, image, and likeness there with our guy, the sophomore defensive end, who's got royalty in the family. How about that, dude?
Dude, the thing that I think of first is the emails. Like I'm a Nigerian prince, and I could send you $800 or $1 million or whatever. So I'm sure he gets those jokes too, because that story that'll never die.
I mean, how many friends are asking for the royal bath?
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
did it happen? Are those real?
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Hey, we're brought to you here. Remember, go Chevrolet every single day. GEAUX Lee Carney, Nick Richard. Happy belated birthday to our guy Nick Richard over there at Go Chevrolet. Stop in and see him. They're over in LaPlace. Back open down there after the storm ripped through last week. Still thoughts and prayers for everybody out there. I know it doesn't mean much with the struggles that some of you are going through, but I can tell you that the people out in Los Angeles may have a reputation of being high class and being a little bit above the of the norm. But I can tell you from our experience, it was fantastic. From all of the Los Angelinians who were talking to us and welcoming us into their city, were asking about some of the devastation that we had experienced, and were really heartfelt in some of the things that they said, and wanted to be hospitable, wanted to have a good experience because they know, or at least right now, it's scheduled to come back to Baton Rouge in a couple of seasons, and they know that the people downhill would fully embrace them and feed them and make sure that they have a good time. So it was a great trip. It really was. All in all, it was a fantastic trip out to Los Angeles. Obviously, the down point being the game, and we'll get a little bit more back into that. But make sure you stop in and see Daniel Newman over at Edward Jones if you need some financial advice. Newman is great with his financial advice. He has helped us out. In fact, he sent me a image of just the returns in the first 7 months, and it's been incredible to work alongside Daniel and to see some of the success that we're having in working with Edward Jones. If you would like to experience that same type of success, get in touch with Daniel at daniel.newman@edwardjones.com to get in touch with him and find out how he can help you out. Daniel.newman@edwardjones.com, especially if you're in the plant industry, Dow, BASF, Exxon. Get in touch with Daniel. He's got great experience there. So many success stories. Daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. Any takeaways there from BJ?
I mean, he doesn't sound like a sophomore.
Yeah.
I thought he was very impressive the way he spoke. And it doesn't sound, I guess, it didn't sound like he was very concerned about the UCLA loss. It seems like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and they're not exactly, like you said, their goals are still in sight. And we had this conversation earlier where we thought, if LSU loses to UCLA, how I thought that was a massive impact on what would be a kind of a real downhill ride to start the season after some of the equity that Coach O built up with Max Johnson against Florida and Ole Miss. It seemed like we were trending in the right direction again. And this it's almost like we go back to day one. There was a lot made of these hires, and it looked like it didn't exactly pan out the way they wanted it to. So, but BJ didn't seem too nervous about it. He still believes in the coaching.
No, first off, he's very impressive in the way that he carries himself for being very, very young and especially a little bit new to the media game, but not as concerned, obviously, as you pointed out. But when I think you're outside of the walls of the locker room and you see some of the things that are trending around LSU now here after week one, it's tough to really think on how they can truly be successful in the conference, to see how they can make any noise in the conference, because I look at the way that offensive line played last night and the way that offensive line struggled, and I just don't know how
that can get
you
better. Fix
that, especially if the play calling is going to remain very unfriendly to that style of play. I mean, if the defense was very much dictating the pace and the tone of the game last night.
And I think UCLA did on both sides of the ball. I think their offense almost attacked the defense, and then when they were on defense, they attacked. It seems like LSU was on their heels all game.
They very much did. I thought for the entire game that Chip Kelly, first and foremost, coached circles around the LSU coaching staff. But when you looked at the way that UCLA defensively, which was, from a reputation standpoint, a very poor unit coming into the game, really was able to dictate the terms of how LSU was going to play. I mean, LSU was blocking with 5 and UCLA was bringing 6. I mean, they weren't calling any screens. They weren't trying to run outside. They were running it. It felt very retro to the point of, I mean, look, Will Blackwell and I are probably the president and vice president of the anti-Les Miles crowd, but I agree with a tweet that he put out last night. Say what you want about Les Miles. You'd never see a team like that go on the road and be just manhandled the way that UCLA was just beating LSU in every sense of the game and just whipping them. I mean, like, beating them, physically beating them up.
They looked like the better team.
They were the better team. They were the better team. I mean, at some point, you've got to step back and just compliment UCLA.
Yeah, they're better than LSU thought. They're better than we thought.
They're better than LSU is. They're better. They're a better team, man on man, than LSU is, or at least looked like that last night. That's tough to say, to go into a Pac-12 school if you're an SEC team and get pushed around, but that's what happened to LSU last night. And I think that is a lot from the top. I think that's why LSU has a bigger problem than struggling on the field. I think that Ed Orgeron is in a tremendous amount of trouble when you just outside looking in, 30,000 square foot view of LSU football, and you look at the problems that are haunting the program, and it takes you about 4 or 5 bullet points to get to on the field stuff. I mean, just because of what the public relations looks like and the feeling around, that was as cringeworthy of a clip. And look, man, I got blasted a couple of weeks ago because of some of the things that I said about Ed Orgeron and some of the things that the administration was paying attention to that they not only didn't approve of, that they were totally against and have voiced their displeasure about, and he continues to throw not only into the face of his bosses, but into a fan base that you can tell is turned off by his antics. You know, I mean, it's not.
If you lose, nobody gives it. Nobody wants to see any of this.
And that's the
nobody
problem.
wants to see you.
That's the problem. I mean, it didn't start until you started losing, right? Like, I mean, when all this stuff started, the females in the bed with the pictures, the females popping up on game week on a Friday in Los Angeles. And look, man, nobody's telling anybody how to live their personal life. It's none of our business of when he dates, who he dates, or how he dates, but there has to be an understanding with that job and that seat that you're on 365 days a year, and that it's a public relations machine, and that if it's blonde after blonde, week after week, that it's not the best look while you're jogging on the beach with your shirt off. It's just not. Whether you don't want to hear that or nobody wants to hear it, that's just not the task that calls to be in that seat, and some of the things you have to sacrifice in the public to hold that seat. And it just has to be understood. And that's been discussed with the powers that be. But it's fallen on deaf ears. It's not been changed. And to see the way that the last 48 hours was handled by Ed Orgeron, in my opinion, from a public relations standpoint, has turned up the heat to a boiling hot temperature for him the rest of the season. Not only because his team came out and struggled, to me that gives the Board of Supervisors and some of the administration that are looking for ways to find a crack to make a move, it gives them the opportunity to make a case when the football team comes out and looks as lost as they did. Again, I mean, crossing routes, you should want to fight the next crossing route if you're an LSU football player. I mean, if you're a secondary member for the LSU football team and they call a crossing route, you should want to pick that thing off in the middle of the field and fight it, for as much as the crossing routes have haunted LSU football for the last year. And to hear some of the comments from Orgeron in the post game, talking about, well, I thought we got that cleaned up. Well, they obviously are not. It goes into the same sense of saying that he wanted diversity in the run game and wanted to develop the run game in training camp, and then came out after the first game and said that they should have been trying to find diversity in the run game and develop the running attack. Well, you said you were trying to do that 3.5 weeks ago in training camp. And now you're the one that's surprised that you don't have one after week one? That's a huge concern. That you don't in practice see that, hey, we're shitty on the offensive line. We better find out a way to be effective, because if we think that we can just line up and run behind these guys, we're going to get blown out. And there's no plan to get the ball out of Max Johnson's hands quick. There's no plan to run the screen, to get the ball outside, to try to run outside, to dictate the tempo of how you're going to play. I mean, what happened to Jack Bash last night? How good did he look on that crossing route where he picks up 17, 18 yards? Where'd he go? I mean, the catch that Brian Thomas made, where was he? I mean, it was just, hey, this might work. Let's call this. This could work here. Let's call that. I mean, after the first 15 plays ran out, after you watch it, LSU looks like they're throwing darts at the play card.
I think that's a huge miss. We talked about it, and I knew it was going to be concerning, but to have two coordinators that have never called plays, the lights get bright quickly, because you script those first 15. Every coach does that. And then after that, it seemed like they didn't really know what was going to work and what to do. There was no identity. There was no, like, I can get the ball to Keyshawn Butte on this play no matter what. There was none of those plays that you have in your back pocket that you know will always work. It was a bunch of get to the line of scrimmage. They were looking around, and they were trying to dictate off of everything that happened the play before. And it looked like Jake Peetz didn't really have an answer for anything, because what UCLA was doing, it was obvious. you knew that they were going to bring pressure after you watched the Hawaii game, and then you see them line up and they have 8 people around the line of scrimmage. Like, they're going to blitz the hell out of you because your offensive line sucks. Like, there's ways to beat that. But they just didn't. It seemed like they were always a step slow. Like, they don't have an identity.
No, zero identity. I mean, going into the season, I was saying that the defense was going to be the reason that they were getting national attention. That's what I thought. The reason why they were getting so much pub was that Derek Stingley Jr. was on that side of the ball. You had some transfers come in from, like, Clemson. You had guys coming back like Ali Gay. You had somebody like BJ Ojulari, who's young, who's coming off a freshman All-American season. Eli Ricks, who's still a dog.
Oh, yeah,
Man,
he great.
He looked great. But they look lost. And when you have first-time play callers in college football going up against somebody like Chip Kelly gave Durante Jones
nightmares.
That was a clinic last night. I mean, he put on a clinic to Jones. I mean, they gashed them. They were gashing them. They were singling them up. They were one-on-one beating them. I mean, how long did we, the Jordy Culotta show, talk about Greg Dulcich? We've been talking about him for 3 weeks.
And we watched, 8 minutes of a game?
I mean, we watched highlights of UCLA. Just take the tight end away.
Yeah, that's all.
And that guy has 3 catches for $175 and a score and looks like, John Mackey. Yeah, I mean, like, the guy looks like, he looks like Travis Kelce. You know, I mean, it's like, what were you even doing? I mean, it was the same thing last year when he got to the podium and said that they didn't have time to put in a zone defense. The season's been delayed for a month due to COVID.
Get to it tomorrow.
I mean, we got a flag football team at Traction that you put a zone defense in on one practice, and you can't run them with 5 stars? I mean, and then you get to the podium last night and you say things that you talk in circles. This is... Really and truly, I'm wondering out loud, is he checked in? Is he engaged? Is he in it? And I mean, I got a comment, Jordy, you deserve the brunt of this. You were the one that hollered for him to get hired. I did. You know why? Because Joe Oliva was leading the fight on this thing, and he was the only choice on the board that wasn't going to take Joe Oliva to the cleaners. And wasn't going to school Joe Oliva in the art of negotiation. He's got Panamsky running in there in a binder, pitching his pledge on why he should be the LSU head coach. And he said he's bringing Lane Kiffin and bringing Dave Aranda. And just by that thought alone, I said, give him the gig because he can recruit the entire state, and he understands that he's not the head coach. He's going to delegate and let this guy run the offense and this guy run the defense. And in my opinion, that's a great formula. But somewhere along the way, that's been lost. That's been lost. And I did vote for that. But since then, it's changed. And in this position, you have the right to change your opinion. And my opinion has 180 degrees totally changed. If this is the way that you see the fit to run the program, bro, I'm out. Out. I mean, chasing co-eds all off season, jogging with your shirt off, threatening to fight opposing fan members, and then your team comes out and looks like that? Get out of here. By the way, we made the comment a couple of weeks ago that people around the country were pointing and laughing at Ed Orgeron. We provided content to other podcasts around this area on that. Did you see Lane Kiffin's tweet yesterday? When Jacques posted the video? Lane Kiffin quote tweets it with a couple of laughing emojis at Coach O. Laughing emojis at Coach O. That's an SEC Western Division coach. People will say, well, he's his good friend. You think that plays as his good friend in social media? To me, that's an opposing coach that you're recruiting against laughing at you in the public. Pointing and laughing at you in the public. You think Lane Kiffin's the only one doing that? You think that he's the one? You think anybody's behind closed doors dirty recruiting LSU on the fact that Ed Orgeron is bouncing around L.A. on a Friday before kickoff and then his team gets run out the joint? You don't think Nick Saban's sitting in Jacoby Matthews and Quincy Wiggins' home when he's got his in-homes showing him that picture while Alabama is boat racing Miami? You think Kirby Smart's bouncing down to Ponchatoula to talk to Jacoby Matthews and say, hey, man, did you see that 2011 game we had with Clemson in 2021 where the only score was a pick six, where we got pros everywhere? You want to be a part of that, or you want to be a part of this? LSU's a laughingstock right now. If you don't think so, check out the 2 million hits on Jacques' post from Orgeron calling out a UCLA fan for his shirt that he had on, threatening to meet him on the field. Give me a break, man. Give me a break. That tough guy macho crap is so tired and so old. I wonder if it even hits the locker room when you set the message or set your jaw or whatever it is you do before the game.
That's what we were talking about whenever we were kind of breaking down. You know, I guess it was just we were kind of trying to give our first initial thoughts after watching the game, and we were wondering if his message has kind of grown tired in the locker room. If he is,
Bro,
he's
look
almost
at the way his
fallen.
team plays.
He's falling on deaf ears, and
Look at the way his team plays. You're going to demand perfection. You're going to demand commitment. You're going to demand all of this stuff it takes to be great at this game. And that's the stuff that you put out there. That's what you look like in public. That's laughable, man. That's comical. That's comical to people like you and I who are on the fringe covering it. The people that are embedded in this thing.
We're embarrassed.
You have to be if you're representing LSU. If you're opposing LSU, you are licking your chops. Licking your chops. I mean, they look so vulnerable and got so exposed last night that,
I mean, that shifted the schedule and how I think it goes.
bro, find them for me. Find them for me, because they can't get better personnel wise. I mean, really and truly, to me, the overall problem, in my opinion, the baseline problem, in my opinion, at the places where they're weak, offensive line, is evaluation. I mean, all of these guys coming out could play. All of them. I mean, Cardell Thomas is the great example. But, I mean, all these cats coming out could go. Marcus Dumerville was a 4-star. You know what I mean? Like, some of one of the big, I mean, Xavier Hill, a 3-star guy, but he still had like an Alabama offer. I mean, I don't know if it's the evaluation. The development's definitely the problem. Development's definitely an issue.
And that's when you go back.
I don't know if the evaluations are. I mean,
it's hard to get
these guys get here and they just can't play. They just can't get on the field. It's maddening. It's maddening to think that, forget the price tag of what you're paying these coaches and expecting them to do it. The fact that you're giving him these types, or not giving them, you're working and recruiting to get these types of guys, and they get to campus and they don't even play. You know, like, I don't know what the story is with John Emery. It feels like it's compliance, because I was watching him down on the field. He was jumping around with a towel last night that it's definitely not his ankles.
No, it's
definitely
related.
not his. Yeah, so I mean, compliance again, strikes and gets LSU
2 hours before kickoff.
John Trey Kirkland didn't look hurt.
That was a compliance issue also.
For a senior, you know, like it's maddening. It's maddening to think where LSU was this offseason, after last year, after the debacle of last year, see all the changes that they made in personnel and coaching, and are dealing with the same issues on the field. I mean, they're dealing with the same issues on the field. UCLA ran circles around them.
I mean, the biggest takeaway from that, it was scheme. It was Chip Kelly just has an absolute, he had them pegged. He knew exactly what to do in every situation. Every time there was a big play they needed, he knew what he could go to. While our coaching staff was scrambling, we had to call an early timeout in the first quarter because we couldn't get lined up, couldn't get the plays in. You see the linebackers and the defensive line shifting again very late, and they're looking at each other doing exactly what they were doing last year, where they're looking at each other, you go this way, no, you go that way. And it's because I don't think the calls are getting in on time. So I think it was a big as a kick in the teeth for both coordinators to be like, all right, this is not going to be easy. I didn't know what it was going to be like, but when you're in practice, it's easy. You know, they can slow the game down and they can call timeouts and they can stop things like, whoa, we can fix this. But when it's live bullets and you got an experienced coach over there like Chip Kelly, who has got a pretty good team, I mean, I think that shows if there's a silver lining to find it, those coaches can find their footing throughout the year and maybe make adjustments a little bit throughout the year. Because I don't want to say that the UCLA game is what's going to write the book on this team. It's easy to be very reactionary to what happened.
Sure.
Because it was by all accounts a disaster. The way that it looked like they just have no plan. But there's a chance for LSU and these coaches to build and kind of, I would hate to say it's a rebuilding year when you have the talent that you have, but you might see some strides later on in the year, I would hope, as they get more comfortable in that role. But you mentioned recruiting, and that's what Coach O hangs his hat on. Haven't we already seen that story before when you had Les Miles? He's like, well, he brings in all these 4- and 5-star guys. Like, well, if you can't use them, if you don't know how to get them the ball, what's the point of having them? And it feels like Coach O is in that territory where if all you're going to bring to the table is recruiting and it doesn't matter because the product you put on the field is shit, then that's not a real reason to keep you.
I don't know, man. I watch LSU, and I think they're in deep trouble.
And they got guys everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, it's the personnel issue that they're going to have to overcome on the offensive line. I wonder where they go for it. You know, I mean, I just forget the Alabamas and the Floridas and the Texas A&Ms of the world. I'm talking about like the Mississippi States and the Ole Misses are looking at LSU thinking,
we got a shot.
Well, they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're vulnerable in spots where they've improved. You know, I mean, those teams have gotten better on I mean, Lane Kiffin signed 15 of his 25 on the defense. You know, I mean, obviously they couldn't get any worse, but I mean, those teams that were bad are making strides. LSU looks like they're
getting worse.
Stuck in place.
Right.
And not only that, they're very unemotional. They're very out of touch. They're very
nonchalant about it. Like, okay,
I mean, like,
seems like they've seen this before.
How many times did the play clock get within 3 last
seconds.
night? And you're like, snap the ball. Snap it. I mean, there was a couple of times where I was like, that's a delay of game. I mean, they got it on 0.
Yes, and you had Coach O, you couldn't see this, but you could see it in the camera when you were watching the game, sprinting down the sidelines almost 3 times a drive to get next to the referee and have his hands up for a timeout because he's like, what are we doing here, fellas? Like, we're not getting plays in. And I think that goes back to Pete's never doing this before. That's a huge step. I mean, that's one of I would say that's the hardest part of being a coach or being a coordinator is being able to know what to call when and why, and then do all that very quickly. And he couldn't.
No, he couldn't get. I mean, it was routinely going inside of 5 seconds, and I'm thinking, I thought LSU's playing with tempo this season. I thought they were playing with more urgency, more, like,
Zip
let's
a little
go,
bit. Yeah,
let's move,
let's attack.
Right.
And then when you're the defensive line and you see the clock routinely getting down to 5, they know when to go. You can't go on 2. You can't do anything different. Like, all right, we're all playing at the same speed now because there's no way to make any adjustments. Say, no, when the play clock is at 3, 2, 1, all right, let's watch the ball. There's no way you can get me off sides. And that's what it looked like. That's why they're able to be so aggressive.
By the way, bro, feed one. I mean, like,
if there's anything that you can take away from this thing.
I mean, get him the ball. Good God.
You forget he looked better in this game than he did last year.
Oh, he's just getting better.
He just looks so
he's just
fluid,
getting better.
man.
I mean, like that broken tackle on that third touchdown.
He looked like Kamara.
He did kind of look like Kamara.
Where he's just
he
always
kicked
on
his
balance.
legs up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just slippery.
What a night for Kayshawn. As he goes 9 grabs, 148, 16.5 per catch, 3 touchdowns with a long of 45. Every time he touched it, something happened.
Oh, yeah.
And he missed him in the second quarter off the line of scrimmage where he is running. He's still running if he hits him. He's running by himself, but he holds it 2 clicks, and he throws it out of bounds. It just was one of that night. It was one of the – look, quarterback was rattled because he was getting his face.
He had no chance. He
kicked
couldn't
in.
breathe.
And I know that we're banging on the offensive line, and I see some of the comments for you, and I appreciate everybody for being out there. I'll get to some of these comments and go back to you. Make sure you're liking and sharing. Make sure you're commenting on it. You don't even have to like it. Dislike it if you want. I don't care.
We know where we all are on a Sunday night.
Absolutely. But a lot of people talking about the defensive struggles because we're banging on the offense, and we banged on the defense a little bit too, man. I mean, they were getting gashed. That defensive line, who you got high expectation for, they were just, truck-size holes that UCLA was running through and going up against.
It's just the communication, man.
Yeah. So, look, man, I'm not here to tell you that the sky is falling and that it's the – I'm just saying that from what I've witnessed both on the field and again off the field is just overly concerning. I mean, I look at this schedule and –
You got 2 weeks to get it right.
Mississippi State.
That's
and then that month of October, which we talked about. I mean, the month of October is going to be enormous for LSU, and
they wanted to bang on the defense, I guess. But if you want to look for not an excuse but a reason maybe why the communication was lacking a little bit, I mean, Jared Small was announced the starter, and then he gets hurt 2 days before the game. So I would imagine that you're missing now your middle linebacker, so that maybe that forced them to switch to a 4-2-6 or 4-2-5. And, kind of change their game plan up a little bit, because if he was your starting middle linebacker, that's who's making all the calls for you. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe there's more to him being out than we maybe realized.
Watching Florida State and Notre Dame right now. Notre Dame up 4 with 11:52, just starting the third quarter here, 24-20 in Tallahassee. Notre Dame up right now. Yeah, I mean, I'm anxious. I can't wait to hear his Monday press conference tomorrow. I think that he will be asked a lot, obviously, about the breakdowns. And like you said, he's got 2 weeks to get right before Mississippi State. They travel to Starkville on September 25th. And then that month of October, which we have set up and talked about a lot, Auburn on the 2nd, Kentucky on the 9th, Florida on the 16th,
Oof.
Ole Miss on the 23rd, a break on Halloween, and Alabama is hosting you on November 6th. So just the
How
first.
hot can that seat get in that span?
It to me, it is warm enough right now where if October is just putrid and it's, bad, that it wouldn't surprise me, man. It would not shock me at all if something goes down. If they are, hey, make it before it gets real bad.
Well, I would be shocked. And obviously this is all a hypothetical looking just throughout the season. But would you even dare go down interim coach road again?
Well, you would have to if you did something
that's what
like
I'm saying.
that.
I think they would just ride it out to the end of the year and be like, look, obviously this isn't going to work out.
Right.
Because there's nobody you can point to on staff that could even fill the role right now. It would be Corey Raymond.
Month of October could get
Spicy.
Month of October is going to dictate what happens here. I mean, really and truly. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 weeks at LSU football on how they handle it, because coming out of week 1, I would say that obviously the expectation is sunk through the basement for the overall season from just, outside. I'm not inside. I know that they're their own animal, but
expectations were high.
They were high, but I talked to a lot of people today in the airport, on
A lot of
airplanes.
changes immediately.
It does, but you look at what you saw.
Right.
You know what I mean? What did your eyeballs tell you? You know what I mean? Like where do you get better?
Where can we find 6 wins?
Yeah, where does this where could you win with something like that? You know what I mean? That has to change. Look at that play.
Is that a defense?
Look
That
at
was
that
unbelievable.
play.
Chris
He's
Hilton
in.
almost made a play.
He did. He threw it too late.
Yeah.
He held it too late.
But you just saw the athleticism
did.
to even get close to keeping his feet in bounds was wild. Like, the future's bright. The recruiting's there. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what you do with the offensive line. There's got to be I mean, there's ways around this where teams have been bad on offensive line and they were still able to overcome it. But that comes with play call and scheme. And they didn't do anything that made you think, like, oh, here's a way that we can get around this. And I wouldn't imagine we don't see John Emery until Mississippi State, if ever.
Yeah, that was brutal. That was brutal.
Seemed like that would have been a great John Emery game.
Oh, man, I mean.
Flick it out to him in space.
Did you see Tyron Mathieu's tweet last night?
Yeah, what did he say?
Did you see Mathieu tweeting about what the coaching looked like? I mean, he was getting very football terminology on it. Yes, it was great. I mean, he was talking about leverage and how LSU did not win the point of leverage on, he was kind of like looking at the plays and saying every play LSU's getting their ass kicked. And he's saying something's going on with the coaching here. Something's not making sense. You pulling this up?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to read what it says word for word, so I'm not misrepresenting what he said, I mean, you'll get an idea.
I mean, it's just the first one he put out. Tigers need to wake up out west.
Yeah. He might have. I doubt that Matthew's the type of guy that would take him down.
No. He just said, man, we need to talk. Well, I think there's no football scheme in here that I'm seeing, but he's right. Like, if you saw where UCLA was at the point of attack whenever they're trying to get Dorian Thompson-Robinson outside. Like, they were running, student body left and getting 8 people out in front of them, and it's like, well, they're beating LSU to the punch every play. Like, it was just the way that thing was schemed up. I applaud Chip Kelly, because I think there's some merit to maybe LSU, if they do change this thing up, or they look for somebody on the coaching staff that has a skill set like that you can be a head coach and you're in command of one part of the game, so you can dictate it the way you want to. Like, having a Chip Kelly who's responsible and holds the play cards and knows what the offense is going to look like, as opposed to where you have a CEO type who goes, well, I thought we had these things fixed. It's not like he's giving blame to the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, but when you're the man that holds the play sheet, there's nowhere else to point but you, and it's very easy to draw the line of where things broke down.
Yeah. It was you could see it, you could almost see it on the sideline of there was no enthusiasm, there was no trying to improve it, there was no sense of urgency, there was nothing about it that looked like they were trying to get it right and that they were trying to fix it. And I'm trying to find these Matthew tweets.
I got him.
You got him? All right.
And it's he's talking with Darius Butler, former Colts cornerback, who does a good podcast in the media. But he's saying, is this a Pac-12 team just running smack over LSU? Beating them is one thing. That can happen any Saturday. But just checking in on them whooping ass. Like, didn't expect that. Mathieu responds, we got out-coached. Haven't had more than 5 plays in this game where we won leverage on either side of the ball.
I think he continues, like they go back and forth.
Yeah, but keep going.
I mean, he keeps going in on just some of the football stuff of how LSU's getting whooped and they're not adjusting. I mean, that guy has forgotten more football than we'll ever know, and he's just watching the game via his couch on television and saying...
It's getting fired up, though.
Yeah,
like, he wants him to play well.
I can't wait till he's a coach.
I know. Okay, here's another one with Ryan Clark, who's saying, crossers, freaking crossers. Mathieu responds, I'll put this on coaches. Tough to watch. Play after play, we lose leverage. Technique is poor across the board. Tackling, piss poor. Communication, non-existent. Effort, not up to the LSU standard.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is...
Get this man in the building.
God, I think there'll probably be a bidding war in the NFL for him before there is in college.
I'm saying, he says we need to talk. Come on, go to Baton Rouge.
But they don't want to hear the truth.
Kick the fucking doors in and
say,
they don't want to
hear the
Coach
truth,
game. Hey, if Tyron Mathieu's in there and Coach O's in there, they're riding with Tyron. Like, if he's like, I don't want anybody coming in the building and Tyron's there, Tyron's talking.
It's not even close, man, who they'd ride with on that. And that's what it looks like.
LSU's got no leadership.
They don't. They do not.
What are you saying?
How can you look at LSU's team and look at the successful teams in college football and look at what they are succeeding with and look at LSU? They are look, Lane Kiffin's tweet to me yesterday has got to be, think about whatever business you're in. Okay, let's take this podcast for example. if somebody took a video image of something we were doing as a competitor and quote tweeted it and was laughing and mocking at us, what would you, I mean, deep down, I mean, you could play all this macho stuff you want, but I mean, deep down you would be like, how embarrassing.
It's how insecure.
I mean, how embarrassing is this that, I mean, Lane Kiffin is laughing at Ed Orgeron on the first playing date of LSU's college football season before the game is even kicked off because Orgeron is going back and forth with a UCLA fan walking into the game. I mean, and I know some people may be listening to this and roll, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it is. If you don't understand the public relations machine that LSU is and what that football program means to that machine, then you don't understand the business of college football and sports. And the people that are calling the shots at LSU are over it. They're tired of it. And this isn't me making this up. I've talked to people that are inside of the circle. And they have talked to his representation. They have talked to him. They have talked about it until they're blue in the face. And in the first playing week of the season, before the game has even kicked off, he's pictured around Los Angeles with the newest co-ed. And then on game day, he's going back and forth with a fan while he's walking in the game. They hadn't even kicked the season off yet. And then the ball kicks off, and his team looks lost. I mean, you're damn right Lane Kiffin is pointing and laughing at LSU. Because he's looking at them saying, God, that roster is borderline elite. And the head coach is tripping and falling all over his dick. He can't get out of his own way. Who's more of an antagonist of Les Miles than me? This stuff is publicly more embarrassing than Miles was. Personally. On the field, nobody will ever trump how bad Miles was. But we didn't know what we didn't know at the time on Miles. So, you know, I mean, we couldn't talk about it. I mean, it's comical. It is comical to see LSU. A UCLA fan. I was there over the last 72 hours. Those cats ain't, they're not trying to hurt anybody.
I don't think they even care to heckle anybody.
They could care less, man. I mean, some old lady behind. There's a smell of a skunk around here. I said, yeah, that's skunk, man. It's all over California.
Keep smelling it.
UCLA fans just, I mean, what's up, man? How are you?
Yeah.
You know? They ain't trying to fight anybody. I can promise you that. They sure as hell weren't expecting the opposing head coach to challenge the fan who was yelling at the LSU head guy to a fight on the field because of his shirt. I mean, come on. Are we talking about this? We're talking about this. Think about that. Really? Like, how cringy is that? That he's like, and I mean, if you watch the clip, he's like grunting going into the tunnel like, huh. And I told him, like, bro, you play in 2 hours. That's where your head's at? You're worried about that guy? You're not worried about Chip Kelly and crossing routes? The LSU administration has to look at that, and I know, they look at that. And I told you a couple of weeks ago they would roll their eyes. They're beyond the point of rolling their eyes. They're beyond the point of huffing and rolling their eyes when they see it. Because when the team performs like they do, and the post-game press conference sounds like it does, I mean, it's laughable, man. Lane Kiffin's tweet.
Well, then you have his Coach O's attitude that way, which is, I'll fight anybody, I'll take on anybody.
Oh, God.
But it doesn't seem like the team is taking on that mentality at all. They look soft.
That stuff is so worn
That's what I'm saying. I don't think the message is getting through. They're like, we're supposed to be the tougher team.
I mean, the day I can't get out of bed and beat a man's ass, give me a break, bro.
About to start fighting a lot of people.
Get your team ready. You know what I mean? I set the jaw before every game. Bro, nobody cares about that stuff. Rip your shirt off with the Red Bulls. Teach them how to guard a crosser. Find some offensive linemen that can play. Get on page with your compliance department so your running back's not booted 45 minutes before kickoff.
Or that you can still have a left tackle.
Look around. The teams that you're competing against in recruiting, look what they did yesterday. Georgia beat Clemson. Bama rolls Miami. And I'm not looking at those teams as LSU's equal. But those are the teams that you're competing against with recruits. You're going after the same players. So, I don't know, man. David Reed says, coach up the linemen you have. I agree. I agree, but are we past that point? You saw it. Yesterday, it was a revolving door. Notre Dame's about to run Florida State out of the building.
I don't think any of this matters.
No, it doesn't. I'm just giving it.
No. I'm talking about the entire season after what I saw Alabama do yesterday. They looked better than they looked.
It's the best quarterback he's had.
Ever.
He looked so smooth.
He looked ready for
so
that.
Comfortable in that offense, man.
If you saw him play in high school, he was.
We were out there, Matter Day. In his country.
It shouldn't shock anybody, but like you said, it's the best quarterback he's ever had, and he's a freshman.
So, I see people talking names. I don't want to start doing that stuff just yet.
Keep it.
Yeah, it's got to be in perspective.
It's easy to overreaction Sunday.
It is very much easy to overreact.
But it was bad.
But I can tell you that it's bad, man. It's bad. Did you see the UCLA recruiting account? What they're doing on Twitter? Go to UCLA Football recruiting. What they use for recruiting. They have taken that clip before the game, used it as like the pre-roll for their hype video that they played after the game. Orgeron's a meme. He's a GIF, bro. GIF or whatever however the hell you want to say it.
They bounced us. We got rolled on social media. They're getting the GAT.
Oh, dude, they're doing everything.
Oh, but it starts off with Coach O's video.
Dude, what a joke, man. It's a joke.
Just a bad look.
That was a.
But then, LSU would have run with it if LSU wins. I'm sure it turns into the other way. People would like that if it's a win and you look dominant.
I still cringed at it the first time I saw it. But the game hadn't kicked off. Nothing had happened. I saw the reaction. But, when I saw him, when Jacques put that up, and I saw it within the first 30 minutes, I thought to myself, I watched it out of the side of my eye, kind of, oh, God, no. 2 hours before the game, that's really where you're at. That's where, when have you ever seen somebody in that position get the coach's attention, much less a reaction out of them? I was at the Sweet 16 game with Duke and LSU basketball in 06, and I'll never forget, we were standing like Krzyzewski is walking by, like, I mean, you could reach out and touch him, man. Like, you could put his hand on his suit. And this guy from LSU is yelling at Krzyzewski. I mean, F you, mother effer, F. I mean, in his face, pointing at him, bro. Like, I mean, like, his face is almost like right here. Like he's pointing, like he's like
giving him
right
the
here.
business.
And Krzyzewski walks by this guy as if he is on another planet, and he doesn't even recognize the guy. It doesn't even flinch. And I thought to myself in that moment, like, he's not even, either he's so zoned in on the game, or he's just, you're not going to ever get to him, man. You're not going to get to that guy in something like that. You can do whatever you want outside of physically touching him, and he's not going to move. And to see, not only react to the guy, and he gives it back to him. I've never seen a coach in that situation. I've seen players. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You've seen players, but you've never seen a coach in that moment where like ESPN's like following the cameras, are like following the coach into the game, pregame, and everybody's heckling him. I mean, he's either got his headphones on, he's got his head down straight, he's zoned in, ready to go. And this cat barks back and threatens to fight him on the field because of his sissy blue shirt. Like, bro, get some awareness, man. Get some perspective. And by God, you're not zoned in more than this? You're letting this cat grab your attention like this 2 hours before kickoff? I mean, I told my buddy this morning at the airport, I changed my bet. You know what I mean? Like,
see, I think it made a lot of people go the other way, because if he does that, it could be the sign of the utmost confidence in the team. We're about to come in here and kick some ass. Or it's like he's got rabbit ears and he's very, very nervous about going into this environment, and he's kind of looking around, taking on all comers, because he's like back to rat into a corner, you know? So it was going to be one of two things. LSU was going to come out and look dominant. It would seem like he's very confident in his team. But when they got bushwhacked, it seemed like he kind of has a little bit of rabbit ears at this moment.
Yes, he absolutely does. He absolutely does. I mean, he hears everything. I mean, believe me, he hears everything. I mean, they're so paranoid over there. I mean, Panamsky, you say one bad word about him over there, and you can't get back in. I mean, I'm one of the latest of
casualty.
Somebody that disagrees with something that they do, or the things don't align with what and how they want it, and they just blackball you. You know, I mean, they just totally. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to give you the personal stuff, but I liked Ed Orgeron, and was voicing my just pulling for Orgeron when it was very uncool to do so. Right? And something happens with me, and I make a comment about something real that's happening with their program, and Panamsky and Orgeron are, they act like they never knew you. I mean, lesson learned. Believe me, lesson learned. And now we can start being real about the program, right? And the fact is, you've got an ex-radio guy running the public relations for a guy who's got no clue on how to handle the PR of a big-time college football job. I mean, that's the truth of it. I mean, if you look around the positions that Panamsky holds at LSU, at Texas A&M, at Alabama, and at Georgia, I mean, those guys are either former high school head coaches, former high school athletic directors, or people that are in the industry that have great relationships with people. I mean, how embarrassing is when Orgeron says that he's interviewing coaches, he says that Derek Panamsky is vetting him. Derek Panamsky was hosting a radio show 5 years ago. The hell's that guy know about college football coaches? You know what I mean? I mean, realistically. I mean, Culotta, you should get the same position that Panamsky has with Will Wade. Will Wade would never hire me into that position. You got to have a basketball guy to do that stuff. What the hell's he going to tell me to do?
What are you going to tell him to do?
Hey, call up somebody's AD and ask if we can get permission to talk to his assistant coach. Who?
Do I just go look at the directory?
I mean, that's a joke. Look at those positions at Alabama. Look at that position at Mississippi State for Mike Leach. Look at that position for Dan Mullen at Florida. Georgia, Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M.
I know
And Orgeron's got his best friend. The reason why Panamsky got that job is because Panamsky was tight with Joe Oliva. And Orgeron looked at Panamsky and said, hey, I can ride his coattails to try and work Oliva for the job. And now he's still in place. And Orgeron gives him credit publicly about vetting college coaches and telling people to call him for name, image, and likeness. I mean, is that a great example of where they are in as far as their competition goes? I mean, look at Steve Sarkisian's program, the guy in place for that position.
I know that A&M and Alabama both have very qualified special assistants to the head coach. Like, their resume is much longer than just being a friend of the program. They have, when you talk about recruiting, they have relationships to high schools that Alabama wants to reach out to or that A&M wants to reach out to. So there is something to the position. It's just I don't know if that guy is the guy.
Dude, that position has to be it's got to be a bridge to the head coach to keep the bullshit off his desk and keep what needs to be known relevant to him. You know what I mean? It can't be a yes man. It can't be somebody surfing social media all day. It can't be some dude searching Tiger droppings to see the last time his name was mentioned. I mean, it's a great example of where LSU is in relation to their competition.
Do you think there's something to, you say that they blackball you out of the program? Does that seem like they're people that do that are people that are afraid to get caught? It feels like that I don't want them to get close and realize that what we're doing here, we might not be qualified for the job that we're in, so if you question us, we don't need that floating around. Like, it seems like they're almost insecure about where they are and how they got there.
Absolutely.
And they don't want people to know that they're faking
anybody who has said anything negative about them has been totally balled from access over there. I mean, I knew the list was long. Now I'm on the list, but I mean, those guys that were and girls that were blackballed, ladies and gentlemen that were in our profession, were blackballed. I mean, all have a reason. We all have this is why I was cut. This is why she was cut. This is why he was cut.
Happened.
Yeah, right. I know exactly what happened. Where it happened, when it happened, how it was said, when it was said. And the fact that the LSU head football coach is reacting to it like that is comical. I mean, it really is. It's high school drama. Really and truly. It's laughable. I mean, it really, to me, showed the true colors of those guys. And really, that's when I was like, cool, we can be just totally real about what we see. If it's going to be like that. I mean, I've always had type of a protective shield up to try and be pro,
amicable,
and keep it where, it's not personal.
Right. Job to do. You have a job to do.
Exactly. But it's, do
you have to go up from the top down?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a top down. I mean, I caught wind that LSU was upset with Jacques for putting out that video. Like, what do you expect this guy to do, man? He's in the media, and your head coach is walking towards a bed of cameras. Jacques' camera wasn't the only one there.
It's not like he caught a candid
There's
moment.
different angles of that stuff. And you want him to sit on something that's going to get him 1 million hits in an hour and a half? I mean, okay, the next time Jacques calls you to get a one-on-one with Ed Orgeron on a Sunday night, you going to give it to him? No? Okay, well then I'm going to do my job. Y'all do yours. Right? I mean, like, isn't that
the
way
it's left at the end?
I mean, let's you're not helping me. Right? I mean, when I needed help, you bailed. We helped you. We try to help you guys all the time. And you expect Jacques to sit on a piece of media that's going to get him, I think it's got 3 million hits right now. I mean, with all the collective amounts that it's out on media, and UCLA football recruiting is using it. Yeah. It's a joke, man. I mean, and now, you look up and they're getting same old story with UCLA and what you saw a year ago.
It's got 2.3 million views.
2.3 million views.
4,000 retweets, 12,000 likes. And that's just on Twitter.
And still going.
And Instagram probably has.
And still moving.
Yeah, it keeps getting brought up.
Yeah.
It's probably on ESPN. Television.
Oh, it'll be everywhere, man. It'll be everywhere.
Not sitting on that.
Are you kidding? I mean, okay, y'all sit on Quincy Wiggins' commitment. How about that? No?
No.
Okay, well, I'm not going to sit on this either because this is going to be a monster for me.
Yeah.
That's what. That's the arrogance. That's the relationship. That's where what it comes down. You try and do that as I don't know. Tough to get into it, man. We're brought to you by A-Bear Specialty Meats. Remember, A-Bear Specialty Meats is in Prairieville on Highway 73. They're also on Jefferson Highway. You can find them there. abearspecialtymeats.com. Great selections in the freezers. If you want to pick up something this week and you need to cook something up for the kids or for the family, that's a great place to be in watching what happens. Being able to cook something up for
watching what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking at right here at this video. You said 2.3 million.
Yeah, look at that thing.
Look at this thing moving, man.
You have been in California. I was gonna watch this pizza bake in the oven.
Rodney Kraft said, "Take some calls." We're trying to do that, Rodney. Katie's gonna be here in the morning. We do have a device where we can take calls.
Yes.
I don't know how that's gonna work because we'll have calls coming in, so it'll be beeping and it'll be moving. But we're going to try it. We're going to try it for sure.
Well, we have a dedicated phone line over here so that we can do that.
Okay.
And that's what I think that's the device that she has. So we'll see. We'll probably fuck it up the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially me.
Good stuff this weekend, bro.
Yeah.
Good stuff this weekend.
Watch party was fun. We tried to, you could watch us melt in real time. You saw it all, like the color leave our faces as the game started to just dwindle down, and you were just like, where do we go from? Oh. Yeah. Oh, it looks like that was it. That's the dagger.
Yeah.
And you could it's fun to, and you got the visceral reaction from everybody in the bunker was great, asking questions, giving us their take. So it was a good time. Good time. Glad you were able to call in. Sounded like it was a madhouse.
It was. The getting out of there was nuts. And then, just the overall just getting to the car, getting out of.
Well, it felt all very unfamiliar. It's not
yes.
like where you are.
You're on a golf course in Pasadena is where they do their tailgating. And I will say this, there was a lot more UCLA fans than we were anticipating. I think by the way that the game was led up to and the feeling around it was that, it was going to be just a purple and gold takeover.
Right.
And there was a ton there. There was a lot there, but there was a lot of powder blue, lot of gold.
A lot of sissy.
There were a lot of sissy blue shirts, bro, in the crowd. And like I said, very hospitable. I've got to find the video, if there is one, of them playing California Love by Tupac and Snoop going into the fourth quarter. I'm telling you that it is one of the finest scenes in college football. And it wasn't a full house, but they have the ability to do the light show with the lights. And they played it to the beat, and everybody in the stadium is singing at the top of their lungs. And it is their sound system is live, and it was as chill bumping of an experience within a college football stadium that I've ever had. It was phenomenal, and if I was a recruit, I would have been like, "This is awesome." This is badass. Everybody's got their light on their phone up. Everybody's kind of like bouncing to the beat. Everybody's singing at the top of their lungs. It is nasty.
I think we'll be able to play this. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you when I have it downloaded.
But it was awesome, man. And then, yeah, I mean, that was it's Dre and Pac. I meant not Snoop and Pac. But it was one of the great scenes in just college football.
Did you know that they did that? Yeah,
not at all.
I didn't know they had any tradition.
Me either. I didn't think they had any tradition. I mean, you could see like they gave the athletic director the microphone to the stadium going into the with like 10 seconds left in the third quarter, and then they started that fourth quarter experience with the California Love. And I mean, the AD was kind of like, he was like, man, this is about that. You could tell, like, he was like, this is going to be huge for everybody if we can pull this off. You know what I mean? Like, he was like,
it's been a career maker.
I've only got one thing to say. Stay on your feet. Keep yelling. We're going to do this, UCLA. I mean, like, they were, like, freaking out. I mean, this is a
I'm about to pull it up. I'm going to see if it works or not.
This is a key win for Chip Kelly. I mean, look at it. Do you have video of it? It was sick. It really does at the end of it, they're kind of like when they bring in the more instrumental part of it. I mean, everybody's dancing, everybody's good vibes. I mean, like it's kind of like you look at the person in front of you, kind of like getting high five, hugging them. You know what I mean? It's just a very cool way to bring up the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? Like, LSU plays that hype video. I mean, LSU's a hype video school. They got a hype video for everything. I mean, this was it's just like, look at that place, dude. I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome, man. I mean, it was cool. Brandon Reese says, forget about Brady in the NFL. Yeah, we talked about this. Joe Brady hates recruiting, man. He does not like recruiting. Joe Brady thinks that being a football coach is coaching the elite, the best in the world, the pro football elite, and just sitting around a football building and finding ways to get them open and get them the ball, man. I mean, he's a football scientist. He's got no time to be spinning on planes going to Maryland trying to get some quarterback at 16, 17 years old to care about LSU football. He ain't doing it, man. He's not coaching college football. And I told you I wasn't giving you names and short lists because I'm not here to fire Orgeron after the first game. I am here to tell you he's in trouble, and his seat is warming up. But you know what I mean. I've said it before. If this job's open, I'm making one call. Lane Kiffin, tell me no twice. You got to tell me no 2 times, and I don't think Lane Kiffin would, because he knows at LSU he can win a national championship in 2 seasons. I mean, he can talk all that shit to Saban and really have a squad behind him that can punch Saban in the mouth. I would call Lane Kiffin if this job would opened up. But I mean, I'm not giving you a short list and telling you that it's going to be open by a certain date. And I know on good information and from great sources that the LSU administration is tired of the public relations bullshit that follows Ed Orgeron around. And the fact that he's got a picture of him on game week of a co-ed 24 hours before the game. And again, I'm not here to tell you who to date, when to date, how to date, and where to date. But if you don't understand as the LSU head football coach that it's a bad look to be bouncing around Los Angeles with some newbie and it be all over social media 24 hours before you get your teeth kicked in on the same stuff that you looked like a season ago and swore up and down that it wasn't going to look like that off of staff changes and roster changes, that people behind the scenes aren't saying, all right, enough with this guy. Enough with all this bullshit. And then you got to put up with him trying to fight a fan going into the stands. Come on, man. Give me a break. Look around college football. You see that anywhere else? Even the tough guys that coach the sport. To the real macho men like Ed Orgeron that, tells you he kick a guy's ass and sets his jaw before the game. Blah, 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 blah. Even the tough guys in the sport. You ever see any of that stuff? And LSU's nationally ranked, got a top 3 recruiting class in the country, and this guy's trying to fight a fan from an opposing school because of the shirt color he's got on 2 hours before kickoff. Come to find out his team looks the same like it did a year ago. I mean, $7 million for this? That shit gets old quick, man.
He wasn't even in a sissy blue shirt. I'm reading they interviewed him for the LA Times. He was wearing
what a great get.
Yeah.
You got a name on him?
Let me see. Let me see.
See if we can't get him on the Culotta show tomorrow morning.
David Witzling.
David Witzling. We're on you, bro.
It's a black shirt with the UCLA team issued. You know, the one that you would get at wherever you buy your CulottaShow.com merch. Said he was confused. Don't know why he's talking about it.
Are you talking to me, man?
Why he's yelling at me?
Me with the black shirt? So, I don't know, man. I saw what you saw last
here's
time.
what he said. Coach O, how you doing? And he's like, we're going to lock these gates. We're going to beat you down. Remember SC? And that got his attention.
Wow, Coach. That's all it took? That's all it took?
He doesn't like talking about SC, man.
Wow. That's...
That guy's a real UCLA fan.
Golly, man, there's 450 of you watching on YouTube.
Do we go to Culotta's show from 8 to 10 now at night?
I mean, definitely on Sunday nights, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all for being there. We're going to be back with you tomorrow. It's Rohan Davies going to be here at 8:30 in the morning. We will talk to Derek Stingley Sr. at 8 a.m. He's
How
on Monday
nicked up
regular.
is he?
I didn't think he looked hurt.
Well, he didn't put him back on punt return. And then you had it, but he was a gunner on as a blocker. It's like, what?
I saw the same thing saying, what is going on?
If he's out there, he ain't blocking anybody.
I mean,
give him the ball.
And
I
thought late in the game he got busted on that coverage.
Well, he's a quarterback. It's going to happen.
And then on the tackle, I thought he was going for the football. He was trying to
change the game.
It was bad. It was not a good look. He
looked great, though.
The play he made on DTR on the outside when DTR tried to get around him, he came up and swiped his ankles. I thought was really big time. You'll see that on his draft day footage.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was a highlight that'll probably live on for a while. He does look great in 7 with the one sock up, one sleeve on.
One sleeve. I didn't know what he was going to come out and do.
Me
But that was a look. I was like, oh, man. Tigers by 1,000.
He looked great. Kayshawn looked great.
I mean, there's people out there that are good. This team has players.
Yeah.
You got to get that fixed. We'll see. Do you think if this would have been a year when it was a Central Michigan first and LSU looks bad but wins, 38-17, 38-10, that there's still this amount of, I guess, skepticism? Or is it just wrong place, wrong time, wrong matchup? UCLA is actually dominant. Like they could be a 10-win team. I'm just trying to find a silver lining here.
Get the hell out of here. Have you seen who LSU has recruited over the last 3 seasons?
That's
and who
what I'm
they're
saying.
trotting
They're
out there?
players.
And for them to get pushed around last night versus UCLA is inexplicable. That is inexplicable. You cannot explain that to anybody that has a half of a brain for college football. None of that will ever make sense. LSU got beat at the point of attack. They got shoved around. If you don't believe me, look at Tyron Mathieu's tweets, man. Mathieu's forgotten more football than this show will ever know. And he's talking about leverage and how the technique just doesn't add up every single play. He said he can't pick out 5 plays which LSU won last night and blames it all on coaching. That's not me. That's maybe the best player that's ever played here. And somebody who gives a damn. Right? I mean, how many times were people asking, do they care last night? I mean, some of the comments that Orgeron made in the post-game press conference, you really got to ask yourself, is this guy engaged, not off the field, engaged into the game? Is he bought in? Is he locked in? Because 3 weeks ago, he said he needed diversity in the run game and needed to develop a run attack. Last night, he said, yeah, we should have paid more attention to diversifying the run game. And you said you were doing that 3 weeks ago. I've already done this show. I'm sorry. I said this an hour ago. And we're going to be back with you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. It was a great trip to Los Angeles. Thank you to all of our sponsors, our fine sponsors, for helping us get there, man. Please support all of our sponsors who give us an opportunity to bring you this show every day. It was overwhelming to see the amount of support that we have out there, man. Really humbling. And please don't let us take that for granted. We do not take that for granted. That's how we operate. That's how we survive in this world. And it's because of you being there on a Sunday night, going at 9:45. Been on for an hour and 45 minutes. BJ Ojulari was great. Our first interview with our name, image, and likeness. Wow, Brian Kelly's about to kill an official in midfield in Tallahassee. I mean, like, red-faced, just mother effed him.
Brian Kelly has an attitude
He
problem.
does. He does, but he's a hell of a football coach.
I like it.
You say what you want. He's got a bad attitude, but he's a good coach.
What's he ever won? Big Brian Kelly. What's he ever done? Big Brian Kelly.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Long as Saban is over in Tuscaloosa and he's pumping them out like that, boys, it's a chase for second place right now, it feels like.
That was my big takeaway from the weekend. Is like this season it didn't even work. Doesn't even
Shout out
matter.
to Tulane, Willie Fritz and the crew, the Green Wave. 8 more minutes on the clock in Norman, Oklahoma is Lincoln Riley's calling around looking for an NFL job. Because I thought Tulane, they nearly won the game, bro. I mean, I'm telling you, they got 6 more minutes left on the clock and Tulane wins.
And they run it down. Almost converted, what, a 4th and 15, come up a half a yard short whenever they had to move from New Orleans to get the game in Lincoln, get prepared. Willie Fritz, hell of a job. Get your team ready to play against what should have been a coming out party for Spencer Rattler in his Heisman debut. A lot of these players that, you know, are on the Heisman list or that you thought, a lot of weird, maybe some upsets.
Yeah.
In week 1. Teams that you didn't think that you would see.
Best news of the weekend ain't even close. Lil Boosie's back on Instagram.
Say no more.
He is back, baby. It is good to have
Lil Boosie's back, but Jack can't get
Boosie
the account
badass.
back.
Yeah, well, you know what? You mess with, who do you mess with? You mess with Livy Dunn.
Yep.
Thanks for everybody being out there, man. It was awesome. I wonder how many people will be at the tailgate next weekend. I wonder how many are going tailgating. We will ask you that question tomorrow on the poll question on the Jordy Culotta Show, brought to you by Go Chevrolet.
Yeah, man.
Have a great Sunday night. Great job this weekend, Lizzie.
Thank you.
To you and the crew. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Thanks to everybody out there. Thank you to Go Chevrolet.